What do you do when you feel called to move, but you have no map, no clear next step, and no guarantee it's going to work out?
That was us, packing up to move to the beach, feeling a mix of crazy peace and total sadness at the same time.
We were excited, yes, but also grieving. Because even when you choose to change, it still costs you something. Comfort, familiarity, maybe even your sense of identity.
In today's episode, we're sharing what obedience looked like when it didn't make logical sense, and how we learned that obedience isn't about certainty, it's about trust.
If you've ever been in a transition, or you're standing on the edge of one now, this episode is for you. Let's talk about the beauty and the brutality of saying yes before it makes sense.
You were created to live abundantly and multiply in every area of your life. But let's be honest, the road isn't always easy.
We know that firsthand. We've been through highs and lows, from losing everything to now managing an investment fund, and we're still on the journey.
This podcast isn't about having it all figured out. It's about real stories, kingdom principles, and trusting God with what's already in your hands.
On Mandate to Multiply, we go deep into faith, family, finances, and other topics, sharing what we've learned and what we're still learning as we walk it out with Jesus.
If you're ready to think bigger, live boldly, and multiply what matters most,
then you're in the right place. We're Jonathan and Melissa Edmiston, and this is Mandate to Multiply.
All right, welcome to our next episode of Mandate to Multiply. I am your host, Melissa Edmiston.
And I'm your co-host, Jonathan Edmiston.
Today we are going to kind of pick up where we left off in our last episode. This is episode 5. Episode 4, we kind of talked to you guys about how we took a huge risk, a big leap of faith, kind of the common theme in our lives over the last 15 years. And we basically opened up our own real estate firm. Jonathan had a corporate job. We were pretty comfortable financially. We had just built a house and had 2 small children. And we took another leap of faith and opened up our own real estate firm. Started with 2 agents, Jonathan and myself, and grew that to kind of want to tell them about how we grew that and what that looked like. I know that was a huge boots on the ground, bootstrapping, hard work, pioneering, go season for you. So how about you share what that looked like and what we did?
Yeah, so it was 2018. We had 3 small children, and looking back, man, we were crazy.
Yeah.
What in the world did we do?
Yeah.
Walked away from the comfort of a 6-figure plus bonuses and benefits and everything salary to open our own real estate brokerage. But when you have a word from the Lord and a peace about it, it helps along the journey. So we, like Melissa said, we stepped away from all of that quote unquote comfort. Mm-hmm. And we opened our own real estate brokerage with just her and me. We started out just the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. And the first couple years was very tough. It consumed a lot of time, and I was the CEO, the chief everything officer. I was the recruiter, I was the broker in charge, I was the admin, I was the paperwork, all of the things, because that's what you do a lot of times when you're starting something new, and you just bootstrap it. And in the midst of it, we were still selling our real estate as well to make ends meet and to cover our bills. But God's hand was upon it, and we grew pretty rapidly from just her and myself to over 100 agents with 3 offices in the Triangle area. That's the Durham, Chapel Hill, Cary, Raleigh area of North Carolina. And one day I got a phone call, and it was a guy who was planning to open an office in Wilmington, North Carolina, out down by the beach. And this was 2022, I think it was, or 2021, in the midst of COVID. And he was going to be moving from another state, and it kind of fell through where he wasn't going to be able to move down. And he asked me if I would open the office for a year and run it. He would still be the owner, but everything would still roll up to me. So we prayed about it and said yes, and agreed to run it for a year and to see what happened after that. Well, we ran it for a year, and he just was not going to be able to move down at all, and asked me if I wanted to just take it over. So here we are. We acquired a 4th office in Wilmington, North Carolina that didn't cost us anything to start.
Yeah.
The startup, the additional office fee, everything had been paid for by this other person, and it was just given to us. So it was clearly the Lord just blessing us and opening a door for us. But we didn't know what it would all entail.
Yeah. The next thing that happened, well, let me just say this. I just want to add to what you just said because you made it sound really light that you grew an office from 0 agents to 125 with 3 offices, eventually 5 offices in total. And I just want to just stop there for a second because we had a 5-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I was pretty much all in full-time stay-at-home mom at the time. I mean, I got my real estate license in North Carolina so that I can be a broker in charge for one of the offices, but I was 8 months pregnant when I did that. It was not easy, and I just want to commend Jonathan because he was always working on our house to do something to move that along because remember we had just built this big beautiful home and there was a guest house on the property. There was so much work to be done, and he was doing that, being an amazing father, always present, being an amazing husband, and building this from the ground up. And to recruit 125 agents pretty much by yourself, it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And so he was doing it all. And so I just look back on that season. I always like to remind people of the hard work and the journey because it's so easy to look at somebody's life and say, wow, it must be nice, or you're so lucky. Or in very few times do people see the hard work and the sacrifice and the dedication. Yes, it's God. Yes, his hand has been on our life. Yes, we've gotten so much incredible opportunity and favor and he's blessed us, but it has never come without hard work and without sacrifice and without commitment. And so, yeah, I just want to say you're incredible, babe, and we should never forget that you worked really hard to make that happen. And I held down the fort with the little guys.
You did, and I could, and that's the beautiful thing about a team, right? We each did what we needed to do in that season, and God blessed it. But at that time, now that we had the Wilmington office, a dream really of ours was to buy a second home at the beach.
Yeah. I grew up near the water. I grew up in Miami, Florida, always within 20 minutes to the beach, always on a boat, always out on the ocean. And so living in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, right, close to the center, but not near the water. We were about 2.5 hours from the beach. Was really different for me. So yeah, it was definitely on the radar, a big dream of ours to have a beach house. And it always kind of sounded silly to say we want to have a beach house. I don't think it's silly at all now, but it was just a dream and a desire of my heart. I remember I don't know where this came from, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. We were at a church service. I won't say which church. And the pastor was kind of knocking, oh yeah, you want a beach house and a mountain house, and kind of like knocking that dream. And that as Christians, we shouldn't want that. And I remember Jonathan and I looking at each other and I'm like, oh, whoops, that's us. We do want that. And look how cool we ended up having it. So that dream was on our hearts, and having this Wilmington office that brought us to the beach, little did we know would be an open door to that beach house.
Yeah. So we came to Carolina Beach. Mm-hmm. We found an amazing little community that reminded us of the Florida Keys.
Yep.
And the house that we went to look at, we decided it was too much for us, too big for us, because it was only going to be a second home for weekends and summertime and things like that. But there was somebody in the neighborhood who wanted to buy that house, but they needed to sell their house first. Mm-hmm. So doors just continued to open for us, and they showed us their house that they had for sale. And we made an offer on it. They made an offer on the other house. And 30, 45 days later, we owned a beach house.
It was wild. I remember just walking through the process, like, I can't believe this is happening. First of all, the fact that this house it wasn't even on the market. They were getting it ready to be on the market. And we're like, don't put on the market. We'll take it exactly how you have it. They wanted the house we had looked at. It worked out perfectly. And like Jonathan said, after 30, 45 days, we now owned a beach house and still had our bigger home with a guest house, 5.5 acres, all of our friends, our people, our community.
And when we got here, and even after we closed on the house, we were like, okay, this is great. This is a second home. We'll spend the weekends there and a couple weeks in the summertime, whatever. But we had no plan on making this our full-time home until we started spending more time here.
Yeah, it was wild. We got here and all of a sudden our love, I mean, it's kind of hard not to fall in love with being on the water and walking distance to the Intercoastal Waterway and a boat slip right there.
And a golf cart to
Yeah.
ride around the island on, and palm trees, and
Yeah, it was hard to go back to the country.
it really just felt like home.
It did. It felt like home. However, it was way smaller, no land for us to, our three energetic, amazing boys to run around on, and no people. We knew nobody here.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we knew not one person.
Yeah.
So that kind of began the stirring. Why are we even going back? We love it here. Let's stay longer. Let's stay a week. Let's stay 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, the way we know that God speaks to Jonathan and I is he'll kind of start stirring both of us individually for the same thing. And I felt really strongly that God was basically saying, I'm calling you to move to Wilmington full time. Sell everything, leave everyone, and move there. And I'm not even going to tell you exactly why, just do it. That is literally what I felt in my spirit, in my heart of hearts. I knew that that's what God was saying. And I was terrified and excited at the same time.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Jonathan felt a similar stirring, right?
Yeah. But for me, it was more just logistical and looking at numbers. It was a great time to sell. It was during a period of insanity in real estate markets where things were selling quickly and for over list price, and just
people giving $50,000 in due diligence to get a house,
Right.
bidding wars. It was that season. It was that era of real estate.
Yeah. But I think it was harder for you because of the relationships and the emotional connections. I mean, the community, the family, everything that we had back in the old house, we were basically letting go of to walk into a new season.
Yeah, well, in one way, it felt very exciting, exhilarating, opportunity, fun, move to the beach, and really God opening doors. And then, of course, like Jonathan said, the excitement of really cashing out in a large way on our home because of the timing of the market and in the market. But at the same time, it didn't make any sense because we were leaving who and what we were leaving behind. I mean, we had raised our children in this area essentially for the most part since they were 1 and 2, and then Jacob, our third, was born there. We had created not just friends or acquaintances, but like family type of friends. Like you go on vacation and your children stay with them. You know, you trust your children's life with these friends, just doing life, everything together. And then we had our homeschooling community. We did classical conversations at the time. We were homeschooling. So we had our community. We had our jujitsu, our music, our friends that we would see multiple times a week. We'd have our friends over every weekend for food, have the kids over. There was always at least 10 to 20 kids in our house at any given day. And that was our life, and it was really beautiful. And so it just made no sense whatsoever to leave that. It was very hard for me. It was very sad. And I know it was hard and sad for our friends, and they really didn't understand. But at the end of the day, they just had to bless us and know that if God was calling us to do it, then they just knew we were making the right decision, even if they didn't agree or understand. And so we did. We put our house on the market. What we were asking for it, everyone was like, wow. They were just in shock that we could ask that amount of money knowing what we paid for it. Now, we did put a lot of money into it. But again, in our prayer every day when we listed the house was, Lord, this is not something where we're just, we can't wait to get this amount of money and pull one over on somebody or whatever. It was not that. Really what my prayer every day was, and Jonathan's as well, was, Lord, let this be the perfect home for the next buyer, that they would be looking for this exact thing, this amount of land, the barn, the goats, the guest house, everything about it would be the layout, everything about it would be exactly what they want, and that this would be a dream home and a forever home for them. And sure enough, that's exactly who bought it. Yeah. So prayer is so powerful, because when the buyers came into the house, she said, she walked into my bathroom upstairs and she said, I knew when I saw your bathroom that this was our home. This was our dream home. And the layout worked perfectly for their family, for the children that they had. The husband always wanted that amount of land for goats and chickens. And I mean, it was just really beautiful to see that transition from us leaving and then them taking over what we had built. We left them so much of our furniture. We became friends with them, which usually usually don't do in real estate transactions. This was very different. But really, we were leaving them something that we built with our blood, sweat, and tears. And it was just beautiful to sell it to them. So we sold our house.
Yep.
Again, massive provision from God. We sold it for about 5 times what we paid for it, which we were able to really start our life in the beach with that. We were able to invest a lot of that money, which is, again, another reason why we are where we are today. And we moved from a large home, lots of land, to a small townhouse with no land. And I remember telling God, okay, Lord, I can do this for like 6 to 12 months, right? Like a year max. And here we are. We are sitting in this house right now, 3 years later. And again, we said we want to bring you guys into the journey. And this is what bringing you into the journey looks like. 3 years later, we're still in this house. We have listed it. It's back on the market, or I should say it's on the market. We're waiting for a buyer, and because we feel like we're finally being released to sell and to move back into a bigger house and kind of closer to everything in town, not being on Carolina Beach anymore.
Well, I want to make an important point here, because you can be called and still be confused. So many people assume clarity must come before commitment. And a lot of times God just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I say sometimes that God doesn't give you the whole blueprint, but he'll give you the next steps. And obedience requires us to just take that next step, even if we don't have the full picture. And we didn't have the full picture of what God was doing here, or why he was calling us here, or any of that. We just both felt in our heart that this was the thing that he wanted us to do, and we were obedient. We put our yes on the table, and we said, okay, God gave us this destination, but not the step by step. And that's where our trust in him really came in.
Yeah, and I feel like we can do an entire episode on the process of transition and change. I don't think we talk about enough the fact that 2 feelings can exist at the same time. You can be incredibly excited and incredibly sad at the same time. And that is where I found myself for the first year pretty intensely. I remember nights where I would be thanking God for moving us, for everything that he was doing in our lives, while simultaneously crying on the floor of my living room because I was lonely, I was sad, I had no friends. I didn't know. It was a completely different life to adjust to. If you think of just moving to a different neighborhood is hard, right? Let alone when you move to a different city and you're finding your new routines, your new rhythms, your new grocery stores, your new routes. Like everything is new. And while that can be fun and exciting, it's also very hard and very painful. Add to that, leaving behind your friends and not knowing what you're doing here or why. I mean, there's a lot of emotion and grief that comes with that. And I think it's really important to talk about the fact that that can coexist simultaneously with gratitude and excitement and hope and trust for what God is doing.
Yeah. But we chose to give up comfort for calling.
Yeah, for sure.
And the next season of our life brought a lot of pain and a pivot. Mm-hmm. So we got here, and one of the reasons we were able to make the move was because at the time we were homeschooling our kids, and we had the office here. But when we got here, we began to feel a stirring for more. So let's talk about that and the ultimate decision that led us to enrolling our kids in school.
Yeah. So like I said before, we had homeschooled from the very beginning. At the time, we had homeschooled for 4 years. I was, like I said, with my kids 24/7, and we chose it that way. That was a vision and a dream that Jonathan and I had from when we were engaged and early married. We knew that we wanted to be with our children. And then in 2019, a year before COVID, again, another one of those things, that's another story we could share for another time, but we thought we were putting our kids in this really cool Christian school that was going to raise our kids for us and check a box for us. And that didn't work out. And God was calling us to homeschool them. And I was like, what in the world? I cried, I kicked, I screamed, I begged, please don't make me homeschool them. I'm not equipped. I can't do this. And sure enough, I made the decision to homeschool them a year before COVID. And then COVID happened. And I'm like, wow, thank you, Jesus, that we chose this. Because once everybody else had to start doing it, we had already been doing it for a year. Well, this was a similar thing, except in reverse. When we moved to the beach, we just started really feeling like, I mean, again, this is another really cool God story. God was calling me back into working full time with Jonathan, him and I creating and building together. And I was like, okay, Lord, that sounds great, but our kids are here all the time. That's really difficult. And so we just really started feeling a pull towards possibly putting them in school. We tried an online school. We tried to hire a tutor, a teacher. I mean, I tried everything to go work around actually sending them somewhere. And I'll never forget, there's a school close by. It's a lottery school. It's very highly sought after in this area. And it's very hard to get into because there's usually not very many spots. And our babysitter worked there, a friend at the time from the church we were at worked there. And so we had a couple people telling us about how amazing the school was.
They're like, just apply, just apply. It can't hurt to apply.
Yeah, they're like, just apply, it can't hurt. And I'm like, okay, maybe. And then I left the applications off to the side. And we were supposed to be on a trip. We were leaving to Dallas. There was a storm. Our flight gets canceled. And because of that, we were still home. And I get a text message from the lady that was babysitting for us. She goes, hey, just want to remind you today's the last day for the applications in case you want to apply. And I was like, shoot, we're here. We were supposed to be in Dallas. We're here. She's texting me. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to apply. What are the chances all three of my kids get a spot when usually not even one kid gets a spot? And so I prayed. I said, Lord, if you want our boys in this school, if this is what you want me to do, then I trust you. And all three will get a spot. And that's how I'll know. And it kind of deep down, I was like, it's not happening. He's not going to make me do this. I'm going to get to keep my babies somehow. And sure enough, lottery came up. 2 of 3 boys get a spot. 2 weeks into school starting, our third son gets a spot, which they say never happens. They don't even let kids in after 20 days, and it was day 19. So all that to say, all 3 of our boys get a spot and end up before actually giving our official yes. So this was like a week before school starting, maybe. I will never forget, and I have journal entries, and I have even a picture because I never wanted to forget my wrestle with the Lord in that season. I cried every day for 2 weeks. Lord, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put them, let alone in school. I don't want to put them in a public school that doesn't talk about Jesus and isn't biblical worldview. That was a big transition for us. But I said, if this is where you want them, then I trust you. And that was one of the many hard decisions that I've ever had to make. We said yes. Again, we put them in the school. 2 weeks in, our third gets a spot. And I said, okay, this must be where you want them. And that was a really hard season. However, if it wasn't for that, the things that came after, which we'll tell you guys about in a future episode, would have never happened. That decision to put our boys in school, as hard as it was, literally changed our entire life. Jonathan and I were able to connect in our marriage in a way that we had not been able to do because we always had kids at home. And so our marriage was, what would you say, like reignited? It was a lot of it. We started going to therapy. We started having great conversations. We started just really focusing on our marriage. We started working together again, both in closing real estate deals and in new things that we took on. And so again, one of those hard yeses, hard decisions that opened a door to a life that we could have never even imagined had we said no, had we not walked through that door.
Yeah. I know we've covered a lot this episode, but just to tie everything all together and to wrap it up, we've shared with you about the gym, about the season of homelessness, the loss of expected bonus, moving to a different state, then moving again. And I want you to know that every piece mattered and that God wastes nothing. This is what happens when you walk in obedience. It doesn't always seem clear. It doesn't always make sense. And I want you to know that your story matters and it's still being written. So ask yourself, where are you delaying obedience because you're demanding certainty? Again, you're not always going to see the full picture. But if God is giving you the next step, be bold and take it. Excitement doesn't cancel out fear, and fear doesn't cancel out the calling.
Yeah, so just remember, if you're in a season of transition, always lean into what is God doing here? What door is he wanting to open? Where is he trying to take me next? And remember, if you're in prayer and you're asking and you're talking to him about the desires of your heart and he's pruning you and refining you and calling you higher, it is going to come with some change, some risks, some transition, some big leaps of faith. Comfort is certainly not the only way or the way way to fulfill or walk out your calling. It's usually the opposite. It's usually in hard yeses, in change, in transition. But we have not walked through anything difficult without seeing God's move on the other side of it, without seeing another door that opens. Every single thing we walk through, we look back and we're like, wow, if we hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened. If we hadn't said yes to this wouldn't happen. And we're still walking that out. It's still happening all the time. Like we said, we're in a position right now. We're selling our house. We're waiting for the next move. It's always a matter of trusting Him and hanging on to His promises and staying really close to Him and at His feet, and knowing that the calling requires risk and requires obedience and requires boldness, and oftentimes stepping out into things that feel really uncomfortable. But He's always with us. He never leaves us or forsakes us. So we hope this episode encouraged you. We hope that if you're in a season of transition, we'd love to hear from you. Comment, send us an email, visit our website, mandatetomultiply.com. You can connect with us there. Social media, DM me. And we just want to hear from you if you're in a season. We'd love to pray for you, connect with you. We just want you to know that you're not alone, and God is certainly moving in your life if you're feeling transition, if you're feeling change. Remember, if you love this episode, we'd love to have you comment, review, give us 5 stars, and share it with a friend. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
And one final closing thought. If you're in a season of transition, you're not being punished. You're being positioned. Take care, everybody.
Amen. Bye.
Before you go, remember, God can use anything. Even the hardest parts of your story can become seeds for multiplication.
If this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or subscribe so you never miss a moment of hope and truth.
You can also follow us on Mandate to Multiply on Instagram or mandatetomultiply.com to keep growing with us.
Until next time, trust God, steward well what's in your hand,
and live a life fully multiplied.